ನೀವು ರಾಜಶೇಖರ್ ದೊಂಗ್ರೆ ಅವರ ಕವಿತೆಯನ್ನು ಓದಬೇಕು.
ದೇವದಾರು ಕವನ ಸಂಕಲನದಿಂದ ಪ್ರಾರ್ಥನೆ. ಹೇಗೆ ತಲೆ ಬಾಗಿವೆ ಘಳಿಗೆಗಳು ತಾಗಿವೆ, ಹೇಗೆ ಬಾಗಿವೆ ಘಳಿಗೆಗಳು ತಾಗಿವೆ, ಕಂಚಿನ ಕಂಠ ಗಟ್ಟಿ ಗಂಟೆಯಂತೆ ಅರಿವು ಹರಗುಟ್ಟಿದೆ. ಅನುಭವವು ಕುಂಬಾರರ ಕೈ ಚಳಕದಂತೆ ತಾಗಿಸಿದಲ್ಲಿ ಬಾಗಿಸಿ ನಮಸ್ಕರಿಸಿ ಸಾಧಿಸಿದೆ ಇನ್ನಾಕೃತಿಯು ಕೃತಿಯಾಗಿ. ಸೆಟೆ. ಶುರುವಿನಿಂದಲೂ ಅಮಂಗಳದ ಆಚರಣೆಯೇ ಆಧುನಿಕವು, ಸ್ವತಃ ಸಾಕಾರಗೊಳ್ಳುವನಕ ಅನುಮಾನವು. ಸಾಧನೆಯು ವ್ಯರ್ಥ ಕಸರತ್ತಾಗಿ, ಸಾಧ್ಯತೆಯು ಸದ್ದಡಗಿಸಿ ಹುಟ್ಟಡಗಿಸಿ ಕಾದಿತ್ತು ಬರಿದಾಗಿ ಹಿಂದು. ಈಗ ಎಳೆ ಮಿಂಚು ಸೆಳೆದಂತೆ ಎಲ್ಲ ವಿವರಗಳು ದಾಖಲಾಗಿ, ನಿನ್ನ ಪುರುಷವೂ ಪೌರುಷವೂ ದರ್ಶನವೂ ಭವ್ಯ ಪ್ರಭಾವಳಿ ಸಹಿತವಾಗಿ ಬೆಳಗಿದೆ ಕಾಣ್ಕೆಯಾಗಿ.
ಈಗ ಮುಖ್ಯ ಅತಿಥಿಗಳು ಪ್ರಸನ್ನ ಸರ್ ಅವರ ಆ್ಯಕ್ಟಿಂಗ್ ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ಬಿಯಾಂಡ್ ಪುಸ್ತಕದ ಬಿಡುಗಡೆ ಮಾಡಬೇಕು ಅಂತ ಈ ಮೂಲಕ ಕೇಳ್ಕೊತಾ ಇದ್ದೀನಿ.
Good evening to all of you. I'm Shashidhar. First of all, thanks so much for asking me to do this job. I don't know whether I deserve it, even though I am in theatre for some time, but I have never been an actor. I did some acting, bad acting, a long time back, right? And since then I have not been either asked nor I have ventured out onto the stage, right? So that's me. But I have been writing a bit and I have been producing a bit. And I would say that I watch a lot of plays, so I suppose that qualified me a little bit, right, to be here, right. I have also read Prasanna sir's earlier books, right, and also novels and then things like that, right. So there is a bit of a continuity, right, in the thought process, even though this is supposed to be a how-to book on acting, right. But this is not necessarily only how-to book, right. We'll talk about it, right. I made notes in Kannada, right, but then I was told that a lot of the crowd is non-Kannada perhaps, right, so I thought I'll take this liberty to speak in English, but in between I will revert to Kannada when necessary, right. So let's see. This book is about 300 pages, right, and interestingly the title is Acting and Beyond, right. So some of it is acting, some of it is beyond acting. Now that beyond acting is interesting, right, more than interesting, right. I actually started reading this book saying that it's a how-to kind of a book or a tools for acting kind of a book, similar to the earlier one, right. But this tends to be a lot more, right. So given this, that there is a lot of beyond, right, who are the primary audience or primary readers of this book is something which I bothered about. Perhaps it is the people who are acting, people who want to get into acting. Actually there are a lot of material for directors, right, tomorrow's directors as well, right, and lay leaders, lay readers as well as audience, right, and then general people who want to associate themselves with a little bit of philosophizing about ways to look at life and then things like that as well, right. So it's not only for actors. I would really urge even the non-actors to kind of read this book. one approach in this book is very different, in the sense that this is more Socratic, in the sense that somebody asks a question and then somebody answers and then things like that, right? So personally I like that kind of a writing style, right? I have been reading interviews of writers in Paris Review for a long time. They are the first rate interviews of any kind, right? And then many things like that. So it's a very interesting, you will understand the process of actually doing something, right? In the case of writers, it's about writing. In the case of Prasanna ji, it's about acting, directing, and then things like that, right? In this, there is a teacher, right? To an extent, there is a character called teacher, right? And there are other characters, right? The names of characters are Bihar, Marathi, Bengal, Bihar, and there is an interesting character called South, right?
South, yeah.
Now, I haven't understood why it can't be Kannada, it can't be Malayalam, right? But he has chosen to write it as South, right? And then, I was asking myself, saying that, isn't it very similar to the usage of Madrasi as a typical kind of a paint-all kind of a thing, caricature for anybody South Indian, right? Anyway, that's my talk today has 3 parts, right, or 3 or 4 parts. One is about the acting part of it. The second one is about the beyond part of it, and a little bit about the language used in this. And the last part is about some of the things which I may not agree, right, with him in the stated book right here. The good thing about leftists in general, and then he was a leftist, I suppose he's 2 degrees to the left right now, is that you can get into an argument, right? You can discuss, debate, and agree to disagree. With rightists, it becomes difficult to argue because it comes from a position of only belief and nothing else, right? So I hope that we will disagree a little bit, right? All is well, right? And in this book, he has used black and white photographs, both photographs taken by Vishwas, I think, Vishwas, as well as caricatures written by him, right? Both are interesting in their own way. Caricatures are nice, of his own thoughts coming up with jagged edges and not necessarily smooth lines and then things like that, but they are very nice, and then they give a little close kind of a thing. This book really meanders along, right, in terms of saying, yes, I will say 1, 2, 3, 4 on several aspects of acting, but it meanders along, and then it goes off track, and then the writer says that, oh, I'll get back, don't worry, I'll get back. And then here is a small snippet in page number 79. There is a character called Kitten. He said, when he meanders along away from the main topic, he reminds the teacher that, sir, rehearsals, no, we'll have to get back to rehearsals, and enough of your philosophizing, right? And teacher says, you know what, I'll give you a stick every time I go astray like this. Give me a solid whack, okay? And there is a pause. In the book also there is a pause, right? And the teacher continues, but before you give that whack, let me digress one last time, right? So this digressing happens continuously, right? There is no whack, there is nobody whacks the teacher, but this digressing happens continuously. It's a nice digression, right? Because otherwise it becomes a how-to book, and then you can quickly finish in 70 pages, but in 300 pages, it goes on, right? So it's a little digression, interesting digression. Actually, this book, since it is a dialogue oriented, parts of it for sure can be used as a script as well, right? Script for teaching, right? One fellow could act like a teacher, others act this one. There is a lot of possibility to use this in education and theatre for a 10-minute, 15-minute kind of a thing. I think readers should also look at it, especially from this particular thing. So as I said, I'll say something about the acting part of it, and then I'll read a little bit, right, from various pages here. So it becomes I don't comment on that, but the text itself will comment itself, right, for that, right. The one good part, one early part is about early rehearsals, right, and all of us who have been in theatre have gone through this early rehearsal part of it, and he talks about what generally happens and then what should happen, right, kind of a thing, right. And he uses a metaphor, right. If I if I understand, it's a metaphor. On page number 24, I'll just read it out for you. And somebody says, I'm serious, in early rehearsals one actually doesn't know, right? Yet we need to try. We do this move and then that move. We do this move and that move, right? We put the emphasis mark on this word today, but by tomorrow one is thinking maybe it's the other word, right? So you keep on changing, right? And he says, continues to say that this is natural. That's why we use a pencil and an eraser, right? And don't use pens, right? In fact, I should say such early flippancy is not to be scoffed at. And I say commit mistakes now so that you don't commit them later on stage, right? Such a wonderful philosophy of showing patience in the initial part, and this is as much for the actors as well as for the directors, right? Directors also, young directors who are into the thing want to be absolutely clear right from the day one. It doesn't happen, right? Only they will realize probably at the end of the thing. So it's interesting to look at that aspect of it. And also this I told you about pencil and eraser being a little metaphoric, and then he also says pen is very affirmative, right? Once it is written you can't erase it, right? Whereas pencil is not, right? So this kind of a using the metaphors, right, both for acting as well as probably for keeping that space for changes, right, is something which we see continuously in the book here, right? There is one more aspect again on rehearsals, right? I'll page number 32, right? And how to read a play, right? This also happens during rehearsals, right? Now teacher says, right, well, read the play like it ought to be done, not as though you are already an imagined character. Understand? If annotation marks are to be fixed, fix it. If it is punctuation mark, fix it. Emphasis, whatever, fix it. Do it meticulously with a pencil and rubber. Okay? Now, this we often see this, and that when we read texts, printed text, or even the punctuation marks, the writer doesn't think about punctuation marks many a times, right? There are no pauses, right? There are no punctuation marks, right? But these are necessary, right, to say where to cut the word, where not to cut the word, etc. Right? Since I have written few plays, right, I think I would have put a punctuation mark where I think should have been a pause, but director thinks it should have been in some other place. It happens, right? So then you cut that and then put it here. So all that is part of the thing. Even things like then next one is important. I think more important than the pencil and the paper. Then Punjab is one of the characters. He says even things like discipline, that means do meticulously with a pencil and rubber. Meticulous is answered with even things like discipline. Teacher says yes, if one has fixed rehearsals, let's say at 10, then be there at 10 to 10, right? Now we know that this doesn't happen many a times during rehearsals, right? Be there at 10 to 10, don't be late, because others may start coming even later. But the next one is, I think, even more important. But if the system itself is faulty and you realize that it is beyond you to repair it, then quietly get out. You see, in a group kind of a thing, not only you have to be correct, but also have to be correct, right? And you are continuously coming on time, but others don't care about it, then it is better not to be with that group, because you will be forever, right, trying to repair the world, right? So this kind of a early rehearsal thing, I thought, spends a lot of things. So it is not only a to-do kind of a thing, but it's a little more, right, than that. I am crossing the time, let me know. Right? So that is that on the rehearsals. Then there is a character called Master, right? Just before he was talking about how did he create characters, etc. So Master is one more character created, and this is in 26th chapter. There are totally 45 chapters, by the way, right? Don't get intimidated by the number of chapters, right? But then it is 26th, and the title of the thing is called Master. So Master happens to be Guru's Guru, teacher's Guru, right? So you are talking about you're talking about Guru's Guru coming and then teaching, right? So he is talking about the non-fixation during early rehearsals. Master is teacher and master are talking to each other. Master says more the merrier, and he equates it to the weeds which are there, right? The weeds which grow, right? More the merrier. In the early part of rehearsal, gestures grow abundant like weeds. Let it grow, prune only later. Right? So let the weeds grow, but prune only later. Teacher almost exasperately said, I know pruning. But he is also direction, right? So I know pruning. But I am uncomfortable with what you called letting it grow, the initial phase. Master says, you are right. That stage is not easy. It only looks easy. But you need to handle the actors anyway. And teacher asks, how does one do that? Master says, take them away from the role. Take them away from the script, from the rehearsal space even if necessary. Right? So this kind of tells me, saying that how for example, guru works with Shishya or a manager works with his subordinate, even in corporate circles, right? That if something is not working, you take him out of that sphere and then take him out and then explain it to him, saying that why one should do whatever we are supposed to do, right? Because especially in this particular case, the actor would have grown used to weeds and then he doesn't want to let go of those weeds, right? The weeds are only known to the director and not him, right? So you need to kind of separate him away and then reason out with him, kind of nudge him, pamper him a little bit, etc., etc. So I thought it's interesting from that perspective. And there is a lot of this one on there is a lot of text on singing and music and rhythm, etc., etc. I will not get into that. It's not the intention of this one to get into each and every chapter, right? But then there is on page 59 there is an interesting dialogue on rhythm, more about rhythm, right? The chapter title is more about rhythm. He says, dramatic characters are not always in sync. Let me read that out to you. Right? This is 59. Let's move from the actor to the character. Dramatic characters are not always in sync. Now, what does it mean? Well, it means the performer on stage may have to go out of sync at times. In fact, this is an important problem in acting, to go out of sync and to come back to sync and to remain in it, right? And this is something which I have seen amazingly done very, very well in many of the productions, especially Aranyakanda, Adhyayana, recently by Prasanna ji. Many of the actors, not only one actor, many of the actors while singing go off the stage, go off key sometimes, but the way they sync up and you are saying, wow, it produces a thing called, once they come back to sync, it's almost like Hindustani mein, you come to sam, right? You hold the swara at ni before going to sa and then you say, it's going now, and then you go to sa and then you say, it's gone, right? So that kind of a feeling when it comes to sync is there even in theatre, and I think he's talking about that. And we see this getting out of sync in the Karnataka tradition of Talamadle. I don't know how many of you have seen, right? In Talamadle ಒಂದೊಂದ್ಸಲ ಏನಾಗುತ್ತೆ, ಕೆಲವು ಕ್ಯಾರೆಕ್ಟರ್ಸು ಆಯಾ ಆರ್ಭಟದಲ್ಲಿ ಎಲ್ಲೆಲ್ಲಿಗೋ ಹೋಗ್ಬಿಡ್ತಾರೆ, right? They would carry the argument to whatever distance, but then they have to come back. They have to come back to the singer and then give him that baton, shall we speak. The way the top artists, right, like Kalchar, like Prabhakar Joshi, like Umakant Bhatt, etc., do that with finesse, right, is fantastic to kind of experience it, right? And so we see this in music, we see this in in many places. So that's understood. That's very well. In all of this book, I like the most, right, is a chapter on words, right? This is not, I mean, I thought it will be a heavy dose of how to use words, complexity, Dhvanya Loka, and then, things like that, but it was not to be when I read that through. It is in page 70, but I think it deserves a bit of a reading, right? And it also about how to practice it, right? I'm sure some of you would have done this, right? Now, a teacher asks, anybody here knows any tongue twister? And Bihar is one character. He says, Chandu ke chacha ne Chandu ki chachi ko chutney chatai. Right? Right? I'm sure all of you would have heard this, right? He keeps repeating with variations, peals of laughter, etc., etc. Somebody, Punjab fellow says, and then pakke ped ko pakde pinku. right? This is but what is interesting later, right? I'm sure many of you would have done this exercise, but later after 2 pages, right, he says that now the teacher decides to further play with it. He asks a girl to sing it solo. Mind you, before this solo, he would have asked people to sing a film tune and then use this lyric in tune with the singer, that film tune, right? Now he says that, but with a tragic mood. Same script, but with a tragic mood. She giggles but does so. Everybody joins on the tragic mode. Now he asks another actor to sing in bass, right? Like Amitabh Bachchan, right? So I think this kind of thing, if done properly, right, is not only, of course, adds liveliness, right, to the rehearsals and then such, but also communicates a lot better with respect to nuances of acting, right? Otherwise, we have seen people using the same kind of a tone throughout the play, and then obviously this helps you in that kind of a training, right? So I thought it's very nice. The other thing is about another chapter called To Pose, right? It's about postures, right? Now, when we look at famous actors around us, all of them are known by their postures, right? Those of in Kannada, we know that Rajkumar's posture. As soon as he comes on the screen, we know his posture, right? As soon as Shivaji Ganeshan comes on the screen, we know his posture. N.T. Ramarao, all my Krishna and Rama is only N.T. Ramarao, even today, right? So we know their postures. But this particular chapter is about how to not to get entangled into a posture, right? Over a period it happens, but how not to entangle, right? And it communicates one thing very nicely. A teacher says, one needs to actually hold each gesture frozen for a while, right? So that it registers with the audience. And I have seen good actors do it, right? In fact, those of you who are in Mysore would kind of recognize Dwarkanath doing it very, very nicely, right? One of our finest actors has been there in theatre for about 50-60 years now, right? He does it so marvelously, play after play, that of course the famous people like Rajkumar everybody knows, but Dwarkanath does it fantastically, right? And gesture frozen for a while. Good actors do gracefully, right? And they hold it till the next gesture gets shaped. They don't panic, unnecessarily rush with the gestures or with words, right? This is what he says, right? I will probably jump, right, to the other section, right? I have other notes. I have enough notes, right? One thing Prasanna ji asked, I hope you don't mind me saying this, have you read this book?
Because he was given only 3 days back.
So both of us have read this book, right, end to end, right? So I can show you my notes. A lot of chits are there, and then that goes to the. I'm not saying we deserve it, but that goes to the book's credit, saying that it reads itself, right? A few things on beyond, and then few things on language, and then I will give it to ma'am, right? On the beyond stuff, I told you some things about the acting stuff, but beyond stuff, you can see 2 categories, right, in that. One is the principles which Prasanna ji has been following for long time, right? So those kind of things. And the others are a little potpourri of lot of things, right? Potpourri means it could be again regarding theatre institute, for example. Where should they be? Can they be in a big city, right? And then and things like that, right? And also he writes a complete chapter about vanity, right? Ahankara, idr baggenu baritar, right? But are they connected directly to acting? Perhaps I didn't find that connection. So maybe if I spend some time, I'll probably get to know. But I didn't find that connection. So like this, you will see a potpourri of stuff, right? But there are chapters which kind of gets you involved intellectually, right? I found those portions extremely nice to read and also think about it as I go further, right, in this. And then one of the things is about 147 page. Villains and bad characters. It's in that thing, right? And teacher says, Ravana lives in the Manhattan style luxury island called Lanka, not Sri Lanka. So he is trying to differentiate between the way we call it today and the way it is written in the text. Assam, one of the characters says, I think you are really making it up. Teacher, go and read the epic. But let me caution you, don't read it in the formal way, read it in the creative way. Read it like one reads a good piece of literature. Read it with your sense of contemporary intact. Incidentally, this applies to all ancient texts, right? I think this particular sentence, right, made me think a lot with respect to current interpretation of ancient texts, right? We think that ancient texts should not be or cannot be interpreted with the tools which are available to us today, and it's not a nice feeling to be there. You cannot logically question anything because today's tools demand you to be logical in today's logic, right? But then people tell you, no, you can't read it like that, right? But then this is some consolation for me, saying that you should read it like that, right? Also, the thing continues. Also, all the so-called religious texts, in fact, they all need to be read the dynamic way, which means the consistent way, right? And there is a character called Marathi, right, who always comes up with the slightly oddball kind of sentences right here. He says that Marathi says, for example, one can't change the shape of Ambedkar statue. Dalits will not let it. They want the constitution in one hand and the other hand future pointed out by the other, right? Can we change the Ambedkar statue today to something else? And the thing goes on to talk about the dress to be worn by the people, etc. So these are all mental pictures which we make ourselves, and Prasanna ji challenges us, right, to kind of get out of that, right? So that's a little interesting thing. The other aspect of beyond is that role playing, right? Of course, it is in the thing called role playing, and it's about how when Ambedkar Gandhi changed their robes, right? I didn't see any relationship between acting, but it's a good piece of writing, right? So that's why it's beyond, right? Now, teacher says Ambedkar changed his dress once and radically at that. Marathi asks, when? Teacher says, in the end, a little before he died. So, and the, excuse me. And Marathi continues, yet when he became a Buddhist, why bring that in, right? Teacher says, because it's important. The change that had happened in Ambedkar was internal, but also external, right? Marathi says, it was a tragedy that he did not survive long after that, after the change of robes, especially after this amazing action on this part. It discarded his robe when it started showing signs of fat. Here, signs of fat, in my understanding, is how the Dalit kind of started behaving like one group which had power, right? So that is, for me, it appeared like that, sense of being fat. But the way South responds is even more interesting. I have read it somewhere that Gandhiji didn't need to wait. He changed it long back, right? That article says he had accumulated enough of the caste ego, even if it was not personal but social, so he discards it and gets undressed much earlier, because he discovered the caste ego much earlier in his life, and Ambedkar discovered later. So this has nothing to do with acting, but I thought this is very interesting to kind of learn, right, the thought process right around it. So a few things on language, which I'm sure it's always pleasing to read. Of course, he makes a comment saying that I have written, I am not very good at English, and then things like that. But no, sir, this is fantastic writing, right? So please keep it at it. This is fantastic writing. It really makes very good reading. Realizing a character, in that, right, there is a sentence here, right, interesting. There is a character called Unruly. He says, makes it a metaphorical bird, more like a Hanuman in the Sundarkand. Teacher says, all characters are metaphorical. Hanuman grows, Hanuman shrinks. Will that belittle Hanuman in his stature? Bihar, a character, responds, बिल्कुल नहीं. हनुमान जी तो हनुमान जी है, अनुमान कैसे सकता है, right? You look at this, Hanuman and Anuman, right, being brought together needs a poetic kind of a mind. And then you read his poem, right? So these kind of things really are interesting, right? Similarly, I found in the thing on pose, right? I'll just read a little bit and then I'll leave it at that, right? The chapter is called pose, right? And then look at the language works, right? Kitten is a character, and the kitten and Moros are fooling around, posing and showing off. That's the context there. So kitten says, I am the princess in this state of pretty pose, and because I have come of marriageable age, I propose. Suppose you go into repose while I propose, I shall get mad and depose you like this. Kachak. Right? This reads, fantastic, limerick kind of a character. And Moros responds, oppose, oppose, oppose. You look at that O's coming across in the end of the sentence, end of the word. Queenly quinine of the bitterest taste, I shall have to expose your bad taste. Your bitter princess in pose, I shall tear open the bodice of the embodied pose and release all the prisoners of lust, so that I can inspire that love lost. Right? So like this, the whole thing reads like a good poetry, right, which can be enjoyed again and again, right? I'll come to the last thing about some things which I don't necessarily agree, and I will request him to respond later, right, after Preethi's comments. One is that digital entertainment, right, he somehow seems to have a huge amount of resistance, hatred, almost bordering on hatred, right? Okay. So dislike, whatever adjective you use, it is there, right? Okay. But I do believe that creative energies, new technologies used need similar kind of a thing, and then maybe a little more, right? Little more, shall we say, little liberal kind of a thing would have done better, right? Is this one, and then we can see this in the forward, right? In the forward itself, right? And in the forward itself, it kind of sets the tone. It says, but we have now been reduced to the stature of a bonded labor, highly paid maybe, mass producing a cacophonic violence called digital entertainment, right? Now, when I read this, I watch Netflix, I watch crime, and then I don't know whether I should feel good or bad, right? But then I didn't feel okay about it, right? So that one. And also he has a special fascination for Gandhi, Rama, Krishna, Buddha, Tolstoy, and all of them, Tolstoy and all of them, and none from our contemporary world, right? In fact, in the whole book, but for one reference from Prithviraj Kapoor by one of the students, that too, the writer doesn't make a comment on any of the contemporary actors, people whom we know, and so I don't know whether it's a conscious decision, because I think that by the way, this kind of a thing we see in his first book. In his first book, Law, there are a lot of references to contemporary actors whom we can feel, touch, and then things like that, whereas he has taken a conscious decision. But he's back to his favorite topic of Gandhi had chosen spinning wheel as the instrument for meditative action. Other saints had other instruments of labor. Some had chosen to beg. Right, now I can understand the philosophical underpinnings about it, but there are a lot of question marks regarding Gandhi taking spinning wheel and then using that as a economic kind of a thing, right? I mean, those of you who can read, who have read Tagore, and discussions between them will appreciate that, right? I have nothing against that position, but I think there is a bit of a truth on the other side, right, as well, right? And finally, sir, I think I alluded to this. Why South? Right? You could have said Kannada, no? You are from Kannada, right? You have said Kannadiga there. So that's all from my side. Thank you so much for listening. And
ಥ್ಯಾಂಕ್ ಯು ಸರ್. ತುಂಬ ಡೀಟೇಲ್ ಆಗಿ ಪ್ರಸನ್ನ ಸರ್ ಪುಸ್ತಕವನ್ನು ಕುರಿತು ಮಾತಾಡಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ಐ ಥಿಂಕ್ ಪುಸ್ತಕ ತಗೊಂಡಿರೋರೆಲ್ಲರಿಗೂ ಇದರಿಂದ ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಇನ್ಪುಟ್ ಸಿಗುತ್ತೆ. ಸೊ ದಟ್ ದೇ ಕ್ಯಾನ್ ಗೋ ಇನ್ ಡೀಟೇಲ್ ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ರೀಡ್ ಅಗೇನ್. ಪ್ರೀತಿ ನಾಗರಾಜ್ ಪ್ರಸನ್ನ ಸರ್ ಜೊತೆ ಕಳೆದ 2 ವರ್ಷಗಳಿಂದ ನಿರಂತರ ಮೈಸೂರು ಬಂದಾಗೆಲ್ಲ ರೆಗ್ಯುಲರ್ ಮೀಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಿರ್ತಾರೆ, ಮಾತಾಡ್ತಿರ್ತಾರೆ. ಹಾಗೂ ನಮ್ಮ ಥಿಯೇಟರ್ನಲ್ಲಿ ಕೂಡ ತುಂಬ ವರ್ಷಗಳಿಂದ ಆ್ಯಕ್ಟಿವ್ ಆಗಿ ಮತ್ತು ಜರ್ನಲಿಸಮಲ್ಲೂ ತುಂಬ ಆ್ಯಕ್ಟಿವ್ ಆಗಿ, ಜೊತೆಗೆ ಎಲೆಕ್ಷನ್ನು, ಪಾಲಿಟಿಕ್ಸು ಎಲ್ಲದರಲ್ಲೂ ತುಂಬ ಆ್ಯಕ್ಟಿವ್ ಆಗಿ ಇರೋದ್ರಿಂದ ಅವರು ಈಗ ನಾನು ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಕನ್ನಡದವರು ಇದ್ದೀವಿ.
ಓಕೆ,
ಅದು ಕಂಪ್ಲೀಟ್ ಇಂಗ್ಲೀಷ್ ಆಗ್ಬಿಟ್ಟು
ನೀವೇ ಹೇಳಿದ್ದು.
ಅವರೆಲ್ಲ
ರಿಕ್ವೆಸ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ದೆ.
ಅವರಷ್ಟು ನೋಟ್ಸ್ ಕನ್ನಡದಲ್ಲಿ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಂಡು ಬಂದಿದ್ರು.
ನಾನು ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಟ್ರಾನ್ಸ್ಲೇಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ಬೇಕು.
ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಕನ್ನಡದವರು ಕೂಡ ನೀವು ಮಾತಾಡಬೇಕು ಅಂತ ಕೇಳ್ಬೋದು.
ಥ್ಯಾಂಕ್ಸ್ ರಾಜೇಶ್, ತಗೊಳ್ತೀನಿ. Good evening everybody. I'll try to mix both languages. I'll pick up from where Shashi leaves of why South, because I think the teacher is South. Because I think teacher is a Kannadiga. So having established that fact for myself while I'm reading, and I'm also assuming a character myself, I'm thinking the teacher in the hierarchical order is at the top and the teacher is a Kannadiga. So anyway, I mean, not to offend anyone else, ಮೊದಲಿಗೆ ಇಂಥ ಒಂದು ಪುಸ್ತಕ ಬಂದಿರೋದಕ್ಕೆ ತುಂಬ ಸಂತೋಷ ಯಾಕಿದೆ ಅಂತಂದರೆ, ಇವತ್ತು ವಿ ಹ್ಯಾವ್ ವೆರಿ ಲೆಸ್ ನಾಲೆಡ್ಜ್ ದಟ್ ಗೆಟ್ಸ್ imparted to people across age groups about theatre or even good literature, because we are in this really, I mean, I understand why Prasanna sir hates technology, because half the reason why we are lost in translation and we are lost for good things is partly because of technology, not to offend the believers of technology. So if I may lay claim on why I am here, I have used the paper cuttings of the Hindu to mark this book as, I mean, these are my bookmarks. So if that's a metaphor, then yeah, I mean, I think I have it here. Firstly, this book comes at a time when Prasanna sir himself has claimed a lot of times that you see, apart from 70s, ಬಿಟ್ಟರೆ ಇವಾಗಲೇ ತುಂಬ ಜನ ಯುವಕರು ಯುವತಿಯರು ಥಿಯೇಟ್ರಿಗೆ ಬರ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ ಅಂತ ಅನ್ನೋದನ್ನು ಅವ್ರು ಸಾಕಷ್ಟು ಸಾರಿ ಹೇಳಿದ್ದಾರೆ. He says now we see a lot of people coming into theatre. So what do you come with? What are the aspirations and hopes, and what is the next stage of being in theatre? Is it for self? Is it a projection? Is it a self-discovery? Is it you wanting to get lost within yourself than getting lost outside in the race of having a better salary, better package, better, securing a seat somewhere? All those races probably bring you into this space. And then there is a race here also. There are a lot of you that come with the hope that you want to make it big somewhere else, which is not wrong. I mean, I am nobody to comment on those ambitions per se, but just the timing of the book after Indian method in acting. Indian method in acting is Prasanna's favorite term. There is an Indian method. He has been talking about it. There is an Indian method, and it's very different from whatever we have followed as the epitome of acting, which is called as the Shakespearean method of act. I mean, Brechtian or Stanislavski, or the Shakespearean school of drama, or the New York school of acting, something like that. So I am intrigued by that Indian method of acting, because to me, when I think about Indian method in acting, I can only think of where our acting comes from, which we are told for ages, from the fact that we come from Harikatha Sampradaya, or the village theatre, or the native theatre, or the native culture that we have all. So a lot of us don't even know what native culture is. We have lost touch. We don't know, and we've been told whatever we see in Bollywood as native culture, or whatever has been sold to us as this ideal village, which doesn't exist, as a native, as an identity of native culture. So with this being the introduction, I want to me reading this book was like walking into a museum, not knowing what was there, what artifacts, who was guiding me, who was taking me around, and what was I going to witness? Is this going to be a time travel? If it is a time travel, how many years was I going to go back and forth? And it's a very fascinating journey. And since Shashidhar has already spoken extensively on the excerpts of the book, some parts of those were my favorites as well. So yeah, just the other day when he was talking of punctuation, I am this generation that is between the one that's looking at the future and the one that's far behind, which is still not a Google generation yet. Google is an effort for a generation and Google is a way of life for another generation, and I'm in between because I live in denial a bit about Google. I'm a conveniently Google generation. So I was just going through a small snippet that said punctuation is rude. Like you can say okay, but you can say okay and a full stop means you have closed the conversation. So many people are agreeing. I asked my daughters, who are there's one about 19 and there's another one about 22, and I said no. She said no with an open end is fine. You're saying no. But then you said no and a period. That means the conversation is closed. I'm like, wow. And I spent my entire life going through identity crisis that I didn't know punctuation. And I'm a writer and an English journalist, Kannada and English journalist, but that used to give me such heartburns about why punctuation. And so many parts of this, they liberate you and also kind of put you in a cage through another method. So is this a house of Big Boss? Was it like that? I don't know. I don't watch Big Boss, but I would have thought this is like going through a psychological experiment per se. And the parts that I loved especially are also applicable to literature. Those are making metaphors and dead metaphors. Today in native languages, I won't say regional because then South comes into being. In native languages, we have a lot of metaphors that get used in our writings like very casually. Those are sexist, those are racist, those are those are caught in a time warp. Those are used very casually. So I'm thinking through theatre we need to, while we reinvent theatre, we also need to reinvent the language through theatre, which is a very proactive method of doing it and also a very effective method of taking it to the audience that otherwise get exposed to these redundant things. So going straight to the parts that I liked. Thank you so much. Thank you. Okay.
It's easier.
So this, I love these names. You unruly I'm thinking is a boy who hasn't had a I don't know. Who hasn't, in my head, it's a boy who hasn't had a haircut, right? Or has a girlfriend or a boyfriend who cuts his hair for him, but otherwise, has no. Sorry, I wasn't indicating anyone. Okay. So, unruly interestingly asks a very important question. That's a timeless question. This I think existed in the 70s as well to now. Acting should become sustainable. What does this famous dictum mean for us? It means every actor should become sustainable. The actor should take care of his garden, which is one's own self, the expressive body. So the teacher says, excellent. Let me sum up what all you people said. You said you are the garden, you're also the gardener, also the one who enjoys the garden, and you enjoy it in the company of a sustaining audience, right? Sustaining audience. I didn't get that. An audience who's as much hooked on to the good stuff as we are, Sahriday. not the 50k follower types on the social media. I like this reference of 50k follower, which means he is not as averse to new things as much as we think he is, but then we have to believe that he is averse in a certain way. And then in metaphor making, this undoubtedly is something that I thoroughly enjoyed and also imagined how this class would have been. There is South that says, I suppose when one constructs action is real, but action can also become symbolic or metaphorical. So the teacher is correct. For example, there is the actual action and there is the descriptive dialogue in any production. In combination, the dialogue can elevate the ordinary action to a higher level, exactly like the Chinese dragon here. Interestingly, this is one part of Prasanna sir that we didn't know, that he has drawn these pictures. At least I wasn't aware that he draws these pictures. Exactly like the Chinese dragon here, this metaphorical dragon evolved from out of an actual animal which resembled it. Ordinary action, why does it have to be ordinary action? Why does it have to be ordinary? Well, teacher smiles and says, well, the action is done by an ordinary human being, isn't it? In a lot of spaces, it's like, though you think there are clear answers to every question that the students might have, for instance, a kitten or Anruli or Marathi or Assam, okay. So I don't know why Marathi wasn't Maharashtra and Assam wasn't a particular language or something. I mean, there are a lot of places where you feel the question is coming back to the teacher and the students, and it's not concluded yet. So if one reads this book with the hope that you'll find answers to all questions, I think you will be left with a lot of questions that may be a continuation in another book, which I'm hoping would be the case. That's the beauty of the book, that it leaves you with a lot more interesting questions than the ones that it answers, and probably that's the way of engaging as audience, as actors, with the theatre that we all think is evolving over so many decades. I think between me and Shashidhar sir, I think we've finished about 100 pages of this book already, just reading this for the audience. Okay. Not to ruin it for you guys, but please do read. There is another thing, and another chapter which is my favorite, like I said, dead metaphors. There's UP that says Rama, Krishna, Shiva, Parvati are metaphors. Yes, yes, they are metaphorical characters, symbols of various virtues. Look at this picture down below, for example. Oh, I see Hanuman, that part that Shashidhar read. Can't a thing, I'll jump straight to the part that I found intriguing. Can't a thing be simply linked with a nothing? Can't a thing be simply linked with a nothing? In Kannada we have there's this 12th century poet, philosopher, spiritual figure called Allama Prabhu, who writes a book called Shunya Sampadane, which means I'll just explain the words. Shunya is shunya, you know. Sampadana is earning or possessing, making it yours. So finally you possess nothing. Like, why can't a thing be simply linked with a nothing? Like, it's like telling you to meditate and not have a single thought. A living mind cannot not have a single thought. So there are these profound lines that are like casually make an appearance, and if you don't stop by, you might miss them. So that's the point I was trying to make. That so what things are? Bengal asks. So teacher says that which exists is the thing. Earth, you, me, sex, they all exist, they all happen, they all can happen. One can feel them, fondle them, but there are also things that do not exist in an actual body. They are the nothings. Love, imagination, inspiration, perspiration. No, not perspiration, personification. They are the nothings. So this, as much theatre this book addresses, there is also so much theatre within this book itself. The lines themselves are rendering themselves so beautifully to a theatre production that I hope soon this will become a theatre production, at least some chapters by themselves as lessons in acting. Yeah, Shashidhar spoke about vanity. I have only a small bit to add to this. There's almost a 3-page dialogue of the teacher like it used to happen in the 70s, but in the that's when the directors decided that they would really do something about their actors. That I'll give you a 3-page dialogue, now work on it. Okay, that's also a way of getting back at anybody who aspires for theatre. What I mean is this: on stage, normally one is not projecting what is inside the bag. No. One is projecting only the exhibitions outside, the vanity, that too from a distance. Yes, actor starts with projecting the vanity of the character. So these lines are self-explanatory. I need not even try and explain them for you. And the last bit of so there's the last bit of part where the teacher says, relax, I was only showing off. This is what the teacher says, so that your people don't go to sleep. Anyway, perception is our strength. This part is what is culture. Perception is our strength. The ability to perceive, just now, you perceive the danger well. When I said I will smash it, that is a reflex. Morose, there is a character called Morose. I would like to meet this character someday. Silence, angrily. Whatever those morons say, don't listen to them. So the unruly has no clue. Like, who? Teacher, upturn things that they have upturned. To upturn an already upturned is the right thing to do. Our upturning done on stage makes us aware, makes us curious. That's our strength. Actors can play, isn't it? So play even the fascist if you want to, like Chaplin did. Don't worry, playing a fascist will not make you a fascist. That's a small bit of a caveat that Prasanna sir takes there, that playing a fascist doesn't make you a fascist. Okay, I'll agree with him there. And as much as we want to speak more about the book, I think it is time to stop and also engage the Kartru of the book. and hold him to answers on a lot of things that he leaves as great. Sorry?
What are the points you disagree with him?
Those will come as questions now. Yeah, technology is one thing that that I have always felt Prasanna sir has had a major resistance to, especially coming from the Samudaya roots that he comes from. He has always resisted technology, and in fact he believes in traveling back and making it very basic. So now we open it, now we start with questions, and Shashi, I think you should ask the first question. ಇದು ವಿಶ್ವಾಸ್ ಇದು ಹೆಂಗೆ ಮಾಡೋದು ಹಿಂಗೆ ಅಲ್ಲ ಕೇಳಿಸತ್ತಲ್ಲ ಹಾಂ ಕ್ವೆಶನ್ಸ್ ವಿ ಡಿಸ್ಕಸ್ಡ್ ಓಕೆ Among the many things that I loved about the book, I loved the format, because it's theatrical to the core, theatrical in its spirit, and I simply love the format because I mean, I haven't read any other book on acting in this format, so I'll begin with this format of the book. I find the format of the book very interesting. Your earlier book, Lessons in Acting, was in narrative style. So with the current book, why did you choose this format? Because I ask this because the book is extremely theatrical in itself.
I think you have answered it. See, it is far more interesting, it is far more readable, so I have used it. Can I make a little statement in Kannada?
Yes.
ಈ ಪುಸ್ತಕ ಈ ಕಾರ್ಯಕ್ರಮ ಮುಗಿದ ನಂತರ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಮಾರಾಟಕ್ಕಿರುತ್ತೆ.
I'll speak for 5 minutes in Kannada. Please forgive me if you can't follow it. In any case, we are discussing that in the classes. ಸ್ನೇಹಿತರೆ, ನಾನು ಈ ಪುಸ್ತಕವನ್ನು ಅಂದರೆ ನಟನೆಯ ಆಚೆ ಈಚೆಗೆ ಅಂತ ಅದನ್ನು ಕರಿಬೋದು. ಆ್ಯಕ್ಟಿಂಗ್ ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ಬಿಯಾಂಡ್ ಅಂತಿದೆ. ಈ ನಟನೆಯ ಆಚೆ ಈಚೆಗೆ ಅನ್ನುವ ಪುಸ್ತಕವನ್ನು ಬರೆಯಲಿಕ್ಕಿರುವ ಮುಖ್ಯ ಒತ್ತಾಸೆ ಏನಪ್ಪ ಅಂತಂದರೆ, ನಾವು ನಟರಿಗೆ ಮತ್ತೆ ಮತ್ತೆ ಹೇಳ್ತಾ ಇರ್ತೀವಿ. ಏನು ಅಂತಂದರೆ, ನೋಡಪ್ಪ, ನಿನ್ನ ಹೆಸರೇ ನಟ, ಆ್ಯಕ್ಟರ್ ಅಂತ ಇದೆ. ಅದರಿಂದ ನೀನು ಬಹಳ ಮುಖ್ಯವಾಗಿ ಮಾಡಬೇಕಾಗಿರೋದು ಡೈಲಾಗ್ ಹೇಳೋದಲ್ಲ, ಅದು ನಿನ್ನ ಜವಾಬ್ದಾರಿ ಅಲ್ಲ. ನಿನ್ನ ಜವಾಬ್ದಾರಿ ಆ್ಯಕ್ಷನ್ ಮಾಡುವುದು, ಅಂದರೆ ಕಾರ್ಯ ಮಾಡುವುದು, ಕರ್ತವ್ಯ ಮಾಡುವುದು, ಆ್ಯಕ್ಷನ್ ನಿನ್ನ ಇದು ಅಂತ. ಸೊ ಇಡೀ ಪುಸ್ತಕ ಅಲ್ಲಿಂದ ಶುರುವಾಗುತ್ತೆ. ಆ್ಯಕ್ಷನ್ ಮಾಡೋದು ಅಂದರೆ ಹೆಂಗೆ, ಆ್ಯಕ್ಷನ್ ಮಾಡೋದು ಅಂದರೆ ಏನು ಅಂತ. ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಅದು ನಟನೆಯಿಂದ ಆಚೆಗೆ ಬರುತ್ತೆ. ಯಾಕೆಂತಂದರೆ ಇದೇ ಮಾತನ್ನು ಬೇರೆ ಎಲ್ಲ ಸಂತರು ಎಲ್ಲ ಇವರು ಕೂಡ ಹೇಳ್ತಾರೆ. ಅವರೇನು ಹೇಳ್ತಾರೆ, ಮೊದಲು ನೀನು ಏನು ಮಾಡಿದೆಯೋ ಅದನ್ನು ಮಾತಾಡೇ ಹೊರತು ಏನೂ ಮಾಡದೆ ಸುಮ್ಮನೆ ಮಾತಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದರೆ ಅದು ಬೊಗಳೆ ಮಾತಾಗುತ್ತೆ, ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಯಾವ ಅರ್ಥನೂ ಇರಲ್ಲ ಅಂತ. ಇದು ನಟರಿಗೂ ಅನ್ವಯಿಸುತ್ತೆ, ಇವತ್ತು ಎಲ್ಲ ಸಾಮಾಜಿಕರಿಗೂ ಅನ್ವಯಿಸುತ್ತೆ. ಯು ಕ್ಯಾನ್ ಓನ್ಲಿ ಆ್ಯಕ್ಟ್ ಫಸ್ಟ್ ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ದೆನ್ ಸೇ ಇಫ್ ದೆರ್ ಇಸ್ ಅ ನೀಡ್ ಟು ಸೇ. ಇದು ಈ ಪುಸ್ತಕದ ಮೂಲ ಆಶಯ. ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಇದನ್ನು ಅವರು ಹೇಳ್ತಾರೆ, ನಾವು ಹೇಳ್ತಾರೆ ಅಂತಂದಾಗ ನಾವು ಯಾವ ರೀತಿಯಲ್ಲಿ ಹೇಳ್ತೀವಿ, ನಾವು ಇದನ್ನೊಂದು ಆಟ ಮಾಡಿ ಹೇಳ್ತೀವಿ. ಬೇರೆಯವರು ಸಂತರು ಸನ್ಯಾಸಿಗಳು ಮೂಗಿಡ್ಕೊಂಡು ಕೂತ್ಕೊಳ್ಳಿ, ಆಮೇಲೆ ಇದನ್ನು ಅರ್ಥ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಳ್ಳಿ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತಾರೆ. ಅದು ಕಷ್ಟ. ಅದು ಇಲ್ಲೇನು ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಿ, ನೀನು ನಕಲು ಮಾಡಿ ಶುರು ಮಾಡು, ಆರಂಭಿಸು ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತೇವೆ. ನಟರಿಗೆ ನಾವು ಹೇಳೋದೇನು ಅಂದರೆ ನಕಲು ಮಾಡು, ಇಮಿಟೇಟ್ ಅಂತ ನಾವು ಹೇಳ್ತೇವೆ. ಆ ಇಮಿಟೇಟ್ ಮಾಡಿದ ಮೇಲೆ ಏನಾಗತ್ತಪ್ಪ ಅಂತಂದರೆ ನೀವು ಯಾವುದೋ ಪಾತ್ರ ಇಮಿಟೇಟ್ ಮಾಡಿ ರಂಗಕ್ಕೆ ಇಳಿತೀರಿ ಅಂತಂದರೆ ಇನ್ನೊಂದು ಪಾತ್ರ ಎದುರಾಗತ್ತೆ ನಿಮಗೆ. ಆ ಇನ್ನೊಂದು ಪಾತ್ರ ನಿಮ್ಮನ್ನು ಒಂದು ರೀತಿಯಲ್ಲಿ ಅದು ಚಾಲೆಂಜ್ ಮಾಡುತ್ತೆ. ಆ ಚಾಲೆಂಜ್ ಮಾಡಿದಾಗ್ಲೂ ನೀನು ಏನು ನಕಲು ಮಾಡಿದೆಯೋ ಅದೇ ನಕಲನ್ನು ಉಳಿಸ್ಕೊಳ್ಳೋದೇನೇ ಒಳ್ಳೆಯ ನಟನೆ. ಆದ್ದರಿಂದ ನಾವು ನಟನೆಯಲ್ಲಿ ಅದರ ಪಾತ್ರ ಬೆಳವಣಿಗೆ ಹೇಗಾಗತ್ತಪ್ಪ ಅಂತಂದರೆ ಈ ಚಾಲೆಂಜನ್ನು ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಎದುರಿಸ್ತಾ ಹೋದಂಗೆ ನಿಮಗೆ ಪಾತ್ರ ಸೃಷ್ಟಿ ಆಗ್ತಾ ಹೋಗುತ್ತೆ. ಇದು ತುಂಬ ಸರಳವಾದ್ದು. ಇದನ್ನು ಏನಾಗಿದೆ ಅಂತಂದರೆ ನಮ್ಮ ಎಲ್ಲ ಪುಸ್ತಕಗಳು ಇದನ್ನು ವಿಪರೀತ ಗೊಂದಲ ಮಾಡಿಸಿ ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಏನೇನೋ ಥಿಯರಿಗಳನ್ನು ಹಚ್ಚಿ ನಮ್ಮ ನಟರುಗಳು ಅತ್ಲಾಗೆ ಅವರು ಬುದ್ಧಿಜೀವಿಗಳು ಅಲ್ಲ, ದಡ್ರು ಅಲ್ಲ, ಇನ್ನೊಂದು ಅಲ್ಲ ಅನ್ನೋ ಥರ ಮಾಡಿಟ್ಟಿದ್ದೀವಿ. ಈ ಪುಸ್ತಕದಲ್ಲಿ ಆ ಒಂದು ಗೊಂದಲವನ್ನು ಪರಿಹರಿಸುವ ಪ್ರಯತ್ನವನ್ನು ಮಾಡಲಾಗಿದೆ. ಇದೊಂದು ದೊಡ್ಡ ಗೊಂದಲ. ಯಾಕೆಂತಂದರೆ ಒಂದು ರೀತಿಯಲ್ಲಿ ನಮ್ಮ ಇಡೀ ಸಮಾಜ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಸೇರ್ಕೊಂಡ್ಬಿಟ್ಟಿದೆ. ನಾವು ಪ್ರತಿಯೊಬ್ಬರೂ ಅದನ್ನು ಇಂಗ್ಲೀಷಲ್ಲಿ ಹೇಳೋದಾದರೆ ವಿ ಆರ್ ಆಲ್ ಬ್ರೈನ್ ಡ್ರಿವನ್ ಪೀಪಲ್. ಅದು ಯಾಕೆ ಅಂತಂದರೆ ನಾವು ಮಾಡಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಏನಿಲ್ಲ ಇವತ್ತು. ಎಲ್ಲನೂ ಝೊಮ್ಯಾಟೊ ಮಾಡುತ್ತೆ, ಟೊಮೆಟೊ ಮಾಡುತ್ತೆ, ಇನ್ನೇನೋ ಮಾಡುತ್ತೆ, ಯಾರೋ ಬಂದು ಇದು ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ. ಹೀಗಿರೋದ್ರಿಂದ ನಮಗೆ ಮಾಡಲಿಕ್ಕೇನೇ ಇಲ್ಲದಿರೋದ್ರಿಂದ ಎಲ್ಲದ್ರ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ವಿಚಾರ ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಿ, ಚರ್ಚೆ ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಿ, ಜಗಳ ಆಡ್ತೀವಿ. ಆ ಜಗಳ ಆಡ್ತಿದ್ದಾಗ ಊಟ ಬಂದುಬಿಡತ್ತೆ, ಊಟ ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಿ. ಆ ಇನ್ಯಾರ್ದೋ ಜೊತೆ ಹೋಗಿ ಇನ್ಯಾವುದೋ ಒಂದು ಸೆಮಿನಾರಲ್ಲಿ ನಾವು ಒಂಥರ ದೊಡ್ಡದಾಗಿ ಈ ಬದಲಾವಣೆ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಮಾತಾಡ್ತಿದ್ದಾಗ ಕಾಫಿ ಬರುತ್ತೆ, ಕುಡಿತೀವಿ, ಆಮೇಲೆ ನಿದ್ದೆ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ, ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಿ. ಹೀಗಾಗ್ಬಿಟ್ಟಿದೆ. ಇದು ನಟರನ್ನು ಬಾಧಿಸ್ತಾ ಇದೆ. ಕನಿಷ್ಠ ನಟರಲ್ಲಿ ಇದಾಗೋದು ಬೇಡ ಅಂತ. ಯಾಕೆಂದರೆ ನಟನೆ ಅನ್ನೋದೇ ಸಂವೇದನೆ. ನಟ ಬಹಳ ಮುಖ್ಯವಾಗಿ ಪ್ರೇಕ್ಷಕರಿಗೆ ತಲುಪಿಸಬೇಕಾದದ್ದು ಸೆನ್ಸ್, ಸಂವೇದನೆ. ಅಂದರೆ ನಟನ ಬಹಳ ಮುಖ್ಯವಾದ ಕೆಲಸ ಏನಪ್ಪ ಅಂತಂದರೆ ಇವ್ರನ್ನ ಮುಟ್ಟಿದರೆ ನನಗೆ ಮುಟ್ಟಿದ್ದು ಗೊತ್ತಾಗಬೇಕೇ ಹೊರತು ನಾವೇನು ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಿ ಅಂದರೆ ಮುಟ್ಟೋದಕ್ಕೆ ಮುಂಚೆನೇ ನಾನು ಹೆಂಗಸಿನ ಮುಟ್ಟಿದೆ, ಈ ಹೆಂಗಸಿನ ಹೆಸರು ಇದು, ಇವರು ಆ ಪಕ್ಷಕ್ಕೆ ಸೇರಿದವರು, ಅವರು ಇದಕ್ಕೆ ವೋಟ್ ಮಾಡೋರು, ಇವೆಲ್ಲನೂ ಮಾಡಿಬಿಡ್ತೀವಿ. ನಟರು ಮಾಡಬಾರ್ದು ಅದನ್ನು. ದಿ ಆ್ಯಕ್ಟರ್ ಹ್ಯಾಸ್ ಟು ಸೆನ್ಸ್ ಥಿಂಗ್ಸ್. ಇದು ಹೀಗೆ ಮಾಡಿದಾಗ ಆಗ ನಟನೆ ಬೆಳೀತಾ ಹೋಗುತ್ತೆ. ಇದೇ ಕೆಲಸ ಇವತ್ತು ರಾಜಕಾರಣಿಗಳು ಮಾಡಬೇಕಾಗಿದೆ, ಸಂತರು ಸನ್ಯಾಸಿಗಳು ಕೂಡ ಮಾಡಬೇಕಾಗಿದೆ. ಏನಪ್ಪ ಅಂತಂದರೆ ನೀ ಮೊದಲು ಮಾಡಿ ತೋರಿಸು. ಈಗ ನೀನು ಸಿಗರೇಟ್ ಸೇದಿದ್ರೆ ನಿನ್ನ ಮಗು ಸಿಗರೇಟ್ ಸೇದುತ್ತೆ, ನೀನು ಕುಡಿದ್ರೆ ನಿನ್ನ ಮಗು ಕುಡಿತದೆ. ನಾನು ಕುಡಿತೀನಿ ಆದರೆ ನನ್ನ ಮಗುಗೆ ಬಡ್ದು ನೀನು ಕುಡಿಬೇಡ, ಇದು ಮಾಡಬೇಡ ಅಂದರೆ ಅದು ಪಾಪ ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಗೊತ್ತೇ ಆಗೋದಿಲ್ಲ. ನನ್ನ ಆದರ್ಶ ನಮ್ಮಪ್ಪ, ಅವನು ಕುಡಿತಾನೆ, ನಾನು ಕುಡಿತಿದ್ದೀನಿ, ಆದರೆ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಬಡಿತಾ ಇದ್ದಾನೆ ಅಂದಮೇಲೆ ಈ ತರಹದ ಒಂದು ಪರಿಸ್ಥಿತಿ ಇಡೀ ಸಮಾಜದಲ್ಲಿ ಸೃಷ್ಟಿಯಾಗಿದೆ. ಆದ್ದರಿಂದಲೇ ಈ ಪುಸ್ತಕದಲ್ಲಿ ನಾನು ಹಲವು ಸಂಗತಿಗಳಿಗೆ ನಟ ಮಾದರಿಯಾಗಬಹುದು, ಹಲವು ಸಂಕಟಗಳಿಗೆ ನಟ ಮಾದರಿಯಾಗಬಹುದು ಅನ್ನೋದನ್ನು ಸೂಚಿಸುವ ಪ್ರಯತ್ನ ಮಾಡಿದೆ. ದುರಂತ ಅಂದರೆ ಇವತ್ತು ನಟರಿಗೆ ಆ ರೀತಿಯ ಮಾದರಿಯಾಗಬಲ್ಲ ಪರಿಸ್ಥಿತಿ ಇಲ್ಲ. ನಟರು ಅಂತಂದರೆ ಅವರು ಪಂಚಮ ವೇದದವರು ಅನ್ನೋಕ್ಕಿಂತ ಕೆಳಗಾಗೋಗಿದೆ. ಅವರು ಬಿಡು ಮಾರಾಯ, ಅವರು ಯಾರ್ದೋ ಜೊತೆ ಹೋಗ್ತಾರೆ, ಏನೋ ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ, ಕುಡುಕರು, ವ್ಯಭಿಚಾರಿಗಳು ಅಂತಾಗಿದೆ. ನಿಜವಾಗಲೂ ಒಬ್ಬ ಒಳ್ಳೆಯ ನಟ ಆಗಬೇಕು ಅಂತಂದರೆ ಆತನು ಅಥವಾ ಆಕೆಯು ಸತ್ಯ ದರ್ಶನವನ್ನು ಮಾಡಿಸಬೇಕು. ನಟ ಕೂಡ ನಾಟಕದಲ್ಲಿ ಸತ್ಯ ದರ್ಶನ ಮಾಡಿಸುವ ಒಂದು ಸಾಧ್ಯತೆ ಇದೆ, ಮತ್ತು ಸರಳವಾಗಿ ಸತ್ಯ ದರ್ಶನ ಮಾಡಿಸುವ ಸಾಧ್ಯತೆ ಇದೆ. ಆಟ ಆಡ್ತಾ ಸತ್ಯ ದರ್ಶನ ಮಾಡಿಸುವ ಸಾಧ್ಯತೆ ನಾಟಕದಲ್ಲಿದೆ ಅನ್ನೋದನ್ನು ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಹೇಳುತ್ತೆ. ಮಿಕ್ಕಿದ್ದೆಲ್ಲ ಅವರು ಈಗಾಗಲೇ ಹೇಳಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ಏನು ಅಂತಂದರೆ ಇಡೀ ಪುಸ್ತಕವನ್ನು ಸಂಭಾಷಣೆಯ ರೂಪದಲ್ಲಿ ಬರೆಯಲಾಗಿದೆ. ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಗುರುಗಳು ಮತ್ತು ಆ ಶಿಷ್ಯರ ನಡುವೆ ನಡೆಯುತ್ತೆ. ಅಲ್ಲಿ 12 ಜನ ಶಿಷ್ಯರನ್ನ ಇಟ್ಟಿದ್ದೀನಿ. ಅದಕ್ಕಿಂತ ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ಇಡೋಕ್ಕಾಗ್ತಿರಲಿಲ್ಲ. 28 ರಾಜ್ಯ ಇರೋದರಿಂದ ಅವ್ರಿಗೆಲ್ಲರಿಗೂ ಹೆಸರು ಕೊಡೋಕ್ಕಾಗ್ತಿರಲಿಲ್ಲ. ಅದರಿಂದ ದಕ್ಷಿಣ ಭಾರತದವ್ರು ಎಲ್ರಿಗೂ ಒಂದು ಮಾತ್ರ ಕೊಡೋಕ್ಕೆ ಸಾಧ್ಯ, ಬಿಕಾಸ್ ಸೊ ಅವನನ್ನು ದಕ್ಷಿಣದವನು ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದೆ. ಮಿಕ್ಕಿದ್ದೆಲ್ಲ ನಿಮಗೆ ಗೊತ್ತಿದೆ. ಇಲ್ಲಿ ನಾಟ್ಯಶಾಸ್ತ್ರದಲ್ಲಿ ಆದ ಹಾಗೇನೆ ಒಂದು ಘಟನೆ ನಡೀತದೆ. ಅದು ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಆಘಾತಕರ ಘಟನೆ. ನಾಟ್ಯಶಾಸ್ತ್ರದಲ್ಲೂ ಕೂಡ ನಾಟ್ಯಶಾಸ್ತ್ರದ ಆರಂಭದಲ್ಲೇ ಒಂದು ಆಘಾತಕರ ಘಟನೆ ನಡೀತದೆ. ನಿಮ್ಗೆ ಯಾರಿಗೂ ಗೊತ್ತಿಲ್ಲ ಕಾಣುತ್ತೆ. ನಾಟ್ಯಶಾಸ್ತ್ರದ ಆರಂಭದಲ್ಲಿ ಅವರು ಇವನು ಬ್ರಹ್ಮ ಹೇಳ್ದ ಅಂತ ಒಂದು ನಾಟಕ ಮಾಡಿಸ್ಬಿಡ್ತಾನೆ, ಯಾರೋ ಭರತ ಮುನಿ ಮತ್ತು 100 ಜನ ಮಕ್ಕಳನ್ನ ಇಟ್ಕೊಂಡು. ಆ ನಾಟಕ ಯಾವುದಪ್ಪ ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ ಅವ್ರು ಹೇಳಿರ್ತಾರೆ, ಈ ಅಮೃತ ಮಂಥನದ ನಾಟಕ ಮಾಡಿಸು ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿಬಿಟ್ಟಿರ್ತಾರೆ. ಅಮೃತ ಮಂಥನದ ನಾಟಕ ಮಾಡಿಸಿದ ತಕ್ಷಣ ದಾನವ್ರು ಯಾಕೆ ಸುಮ್ಮನೆ ಇರ್ತಾರೆ? ದಾನವ್ರು ಬಂದು ಚಚ್ಚಿಬಿಟ್ಟು ಆ ನಾಟಕನೇ ಹಾಳು ಮಾಡಾಕ್ಬಿಡ್ತಾರೆ. ಆಗ ಹೋಗಿ ಮತ್ತೆ ಹೋದಾಗ, ಇಲ್ಲ ಇದನ್ನು ಒಳಗಡೆ ಮಾಡಿಸಿ, ರಂಗಮಂದಿರದ ಒಳಗೆ ಮಾಡಿಸು ಅಂತ ಸೂಚನೆ ಕೊಡ್ತಾರೆ. ಹೀಗೆ ಶುರುವಾಗುತ್ತೆ ನಮ್ಮ ಇಡೀ ನಾಟ್ಯಶಾಸ್ತ್ರ. ಒಂದು ರೀತಿಯಲ್ಲಿ ಸಣ್ಣ ರಂಗಮಂದಿರದ ಒಳಗಡೆ ಮಾಡುವ ಬಹಳ ಸಹೃದಯ ಪ್ರೇಕ್ಷಕರಿಗೆ ತುಂಬ ಸಣ್ಣ ರೀತಿಯಲ್ಲಿ ನಟನೆ ಮಾಡಿ ತೋರಿಸುವ ನಾಟಕಗಳು. ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ನಮ್ಮ ಕಾಳಿದಾಸನ ಭಾಷೆಗೂ ಮತ್ತು ಸೋಫೋಕ್ಲಿಸನ ಭಾಷೆಗೂ ಇರುವ ಅಂತರ ಎಷ್ಟು ದೊಡ್ಡದು ಅಂದರೆ, ಕಾಳಿದಾಸ ಅವನ ನಾಟಕವನ್ನು ನೋಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದಿದ್ದು 50-60 ಜನ. ಆ 50-60 ಜನ ಎಷ್ಟು ಹತ್ತಿರದಿಂದ ನೋಡೋರು, ಇನ್ನೂ ಹತ್ತಿರದಿಂದ ಕೂತ್ಕೊಂಡು ಅವ್ರು ನೋಡೋರು. ನಿನ್ನ ಕಣ್ಣಲ್ಲಾಗುವ ಬದಲಾವಣೆ, ನಿನ್ನ ಮುಖದಲ್ಲಾಗುವ ಬೆಳವಣಿಗೆ, ಸಣ್ಣ ಬದಲಾವಣೆಗಳು, ಇವೆಲ್ಲ ಅವ್ರಿಗೆ ಕಾಣಿಸ್ತಾ ಇತ್ತು. ಇದು ನಮ್ಮ ಪರಂಪರೆ. ನಮ್ಮ ಪರಂಪರೆಯಲ್ಲಿ ಬಂದಿರುವ ಶ್ರೇಷ್ಠ ಕೃತಿಗಳೆಲ್ಲ ಯಾಕೆ ಬಂದಿದೆ ಅಂತಂದರೆ, ತುಂಬ ಹತ್ತಿರದಲ್ಲಿ ಸಹೃದಯ ಪ್ರೇಕ್ಷಕರು ಅಂದರೆ ಯಾರು? ಅವರಿಗೆ ಇದ್ರ ಹಿಂದಿನ ನಾಟಕ ನೋಡಿರ್ತಿದ್ರು, ಅದರ ಹಿಂದಿನ ನಾಟಕ ನೋಡ್ತಿದ್ರು, ನಿಮ್ಮನ್ನು ತಿದ್ತಿದ್ರು, ಹಾಗೆಲ್ಲ ಮಾಡಬಾರ್ದು ಕಣಯ್ಯ, ಇದು ನಟನೆ ಅಲ್ಲ, ಅತಿಯಾಗಿ ಮಾಡ್ತಿದ್ದೆ ಅಂತ ದಂಡಿಸ್ತಿದ್ರು. ಆ ಒಂದು ಸಮುದಾಯದ ನಡುವೆ ನಡೆಯುತ್ತಿದ್ದ ಸಭ್ಯತೆಯ ಪ್ರಯತ್ನ ನಾಟಕವಾಗಿತ್ತು. ಆ ಸಮುದಾಯದ ಒಳಗೆ ಸಭ್ಯರನ್ನು ಕಟ್ಟುವ, ಸಭ್ಯ ಒಂದು ಸಂಸ್ಕೃತಿಯನ್ನು ಕಟ್ಟುವ ಪ್ರಯತ್ನ ನಾಟಕ ಆಗಿತ್ತು. ಅದು ಮತ್ತೆ ಆಗಬೇಕು ಅನ್ನೋದು ಈ ಪುಸ್ತಕದ ಆಶಯ. ಇದರಲ್ಲಿ ಅನೇಕ ಸಂಗತಿಗಳು ಆಶಯ ಮಾತ್ರ. ಯಾಕೆಂತಂದರೆ ಇವತ್ತಿನ ಪರಿಸ್ಥಿತಿ ಏನಿದೆ ನಿಮ್ಮೆಲ್ಲರಿಗೂ ಗೊತ್ತಿದೆ. ಅದರ ವಿರುದ್ಧ ಕೂಗ್ತಾ ಹೋದರೆ ಏನೂ ಆಗೋದಿಲ್ಲ. ಇನ್ನು ನೀವು ಹೇಳಿದಲ್ಲ, ಈ ರಾಕ್ಷಸ ಸಂಸ್ಕೃತಿ, ಯಂತ್ರ ನಾಗರಿಕತೆ, ಇದನ್ನು ನಾನು ತಿರಸ್ಕರಿಸ್ತಾ ಇರೋದು ಹೌದು. ಇದನ್ನು ತಿರಸ್ಕರಿಸದೆ ನೀವು ಇವತ್ತಿನ ಸಂಕಟವನ್ನು ಪರಿಹಾರ ಮಾಡ್ಬೋದು ಅಂತ ಡೋಂಗ್ರೆ ಅವರಿಗೆ ಅನಿಸಿದರೆ ನೀವು ನನಗೆ ಹೇಳಿ. ಯಾಕೆಂತಂದರೆ ನಿಜ, ನೆಟ್ಫ್ಲಿಕ್ಸಲ್ಲಿ ಅದ್ಭುತವಾದ ಸಿನಿಮಾಗಳು ಬರ್ತಾಯಿದೆ. ನಾವು ನೋಡುವ ಈ ತಂತ್ರಜ್ಞಾನ ನಿಮ್ಗೆ ಕೊಡ್ತಿರೋದೆಲ್ಲರೂ ಮನುಷ್ಯ ಮಾತ್ರದವನಿಗೆ ಎಂಥ ಅಸಾಧಾರಣವಾದ ಸುಖವನ್ನು ಕೊಡ್ತಾ ಇದೆ, ಅಸಾಧಾರಣವಾದ ಜ್ಞಾನವನ್ನು ಕೊಡ್ತಾ ಇದೆ ಅಂತಂದರೆ ಏನೂ ಅನುಮಾನ ಇಲ್ಲ. ಆದರೆ ಮನುಷ್ಯರಿಗೆ ಅಸಾಧಾರಣ ಜ್ಞಾನವನ್ನು ಕೊಡ್ತೀನಿ ಅನ್ನೋದರಲ್ಲಿ ಅದು ಒಟ್ಟು ಸಂಸ್ಕೃತಿಗೆ, ಒಟ್ಟು ಸಭ್ಯತೆಗೆ, ಒಟ್ಟು ಪರಿಸರಕ್ಕೆ ಏನು ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದೆ? ಇವತ್ತು ಆ ಪ್ರಶ್ನೆ ಎದ್ದೇ ಹೋದರೆ ಏನಾಗುತ್ತೆ ಅಂದರೆ, ಇನ್ನೊಂದು 20-30 ವರ್ಷದಲ್ಲಿ ನಾವೆಲ್ಲ ಸತ್ತು ಹೋಗ್ತೀವಿ, ನಾಶ ಆಗ್ತೀವಿ ಅಂತ ಕೂಡ ಡೊಂಗ್ರೆಯವರ ಅಣ್ಣ ತಮ್ಮಂದರೆ ಹೇಳ್ತಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ದಿ ಸೈಂಟಿಫಿಕ್ ಕಮ್ಯುನಿಟಿ ಈಸ್ ಸೇಯಿಂಗ್ ದ್ಯಾಟ್. ಸೊ ಐ ಹ್ಯಾವ್ ನೋ ಕ್ವೆಶ್ಚನ್ಸ್ ಅಬೌಟ್ ಇಟ್. ಐ ಲೈಕ್ ಆಸ್ ಮಚ್ of Netflix as you like. I like all those things, but then I know the truth that unless you drop it, you are not going to survive. ಈ ಉದಾಹರಣೆಗೆ ನನಗೆ ನೆಟ್ಫ್ಲಿಕ್ಸಿನ ಸಮಸ್ಯೆ ಏನು ಗೊತ್ತಾ? ನನ್ನ ಮಗುಗೆ, ಈ ಹಳ್ಳಿನಲ್ಲಿರೋ ಮಗುಗೆ ಅಥವಾ ಪಕ್ಕದಲ್ಲಿರೋ ಊರಿನ ಹುಡುಗಿಗೆ ನಾಟಕ ಮಾಡಬೇಕಾಗಿದೆ. ನೆಟ್ಫ್ಲಿಕ್ಸ್ ಏನು ಮಾಡ್ತಾಯಿದೆ ಅಂದರೆ, ನೀನು ಯಾಕೆ ನಾಟಕ ಮಾಡ್ತೀಯಾ? ಬೇಡ, ನೋ ಡೋಂಟ್ ಡೂ ಪ್ಲೇಸ್, वी विल प्रोड्यूस इट फॉर यू. तुम्हारे घर में, तुम्हारे बगल में, तुम्हारे बिस्तर में मैं ले आऊँगा नेटफ्लिक्स के थ्रू. तुम क्यों करना चाहते हो? तुम्हें काम करने का ज़रूरत क्या है? तुम्हें एक्शन करने का ज़रूरत क्या है? एक्शन मत करो, सिर्फ बोलते रहो, बोलते रहो, बोलते रहो, बोलते रहो. हम सब बोलने वाले हो गए हैं. So that is the danger of Netflix. See, Netflix is an amazingly attractive thing, amazingly good thing. Great actors are shown, great drama is shown, but it is shown. The important thing about drama is that it has to be done. ನಾಟಕವನ್ನು ನಾವು ಮಾಡಬೇಕು. ನಾವೇ ಇದನ್ನು ಆ್ಯಕ್ಷನನ್ನು ಸೃಷ್ಟಿ ಮಾಡಿದಾಗ ಮಾತ್ರ ಆ ದಲಿತರ ಮಗುವೋ ಅಥವಾ ಆ ಒಂದು ಹಳ್ಳಿ ಹುಡುಗಿಯೋ ಮಾತಾಡೋಕ್ಕೆ ಕಲಿತಾರೆ, ಸಭ್ಯತೆ ಕಲಿತಾರೆ. ಆ್ಯಕ್ಷನ್ ಅಂದರೆ ಏನು ಅಂತ ಅವ್ರಿಗೆ ಗೊತ್ತಾಗುತ್ತೆ, ಅವರು ಸಮಾಜ ನಡೆಸ್ತಾರೆ. ಸೊ ಇದು ಒಂದು ಭಾಳ ದೊಡ್ಡ ಇದು ಚರ್ಚೆ. ಇಷ್ಟು ಮಾತ್ರ ನನ್ನ ಪುಸ್ತಕದ ಉದ್ದೇಶ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿ, ಮಿಕ್ಕಿದ್ದನ್ನು ನೀವೆಲ್ಲರೂ ಓದಿ. ಇಂಗ್ಲೀಷಲ್ಲಿ ಯಾಕೆ ಬರದೆ ಅಂತಂದರೆ, ನಾನು ನನ್ನ ಮೊದಲ ಪುಸ್ತಕ ಬರೆದಿದ್ದು 28 ವರ್ಷದ ಹಿಂದೆ. ಅಂದರೆ ನಟನೆಯ ಪಾಠಗಳು ಅಂತ ಕನ್ನಡದಲ್ಲಿ ನಾನು ಬರೆದಿದ್ದು 28 ವರ್ಷದ ಹಿಂದೆ. ಅದಾದಮೇಲೆ ನಾನೇ 10 ವರ್ಷ ಹಿಡಿದು ಇಂಗ್ಲೀಷಿಗೆ ಟ್ರಾನ್ಸ್ಲೇಟ್ ಮಾಡಿದ ಮೇಲೆ ಈಗ ಅದು ಹಿಂದಿಗೆ ಅನುವಾದ ಆಗಿದೆ. ಸೊ ಇಟ್ ಟುಕ್ ಮೀ ಸೋ ಲಾಂಗ್ ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ದಿಸ್ ವರ್ಲ್ಡ್ ಕೆನಾಟ್ ವೇಟ್ ಫಾರ್ ದ್ಯಾಟ್. ಸೊ ಐ ಸೆಡ್ ಪರವಾಗಿಲ್ಲ, ಕನ್ನಡಿಗರಿಗೆ ಬೇಸರ ಆದರೂ ಪರವಾಗಿಲ್ಲ, ನಾನು ಇದನ್ನು ಇಂಗ್ಲೀಷಲ್ಲೇ ಬರಿತೀನಿ, ಆಮೇಲೆ ಅದನ್ನು ಕನ್ನಡಕ್ಕೋ ಹಿಂದಿಗೋ ಮಲಯಾಳಮಿಗೋ ಪಂಜಾಬಿಗೋ ಅನುವಾದ ಆಗೋದಾದ್ರೆ ಭಾಳ ಸಂತೋಷ ಅಂತ ಅನ್ನಿಸಿ ನಾನು ಅದನ್ನು ಇಂಗ್ಲೀಷಲ್ಲಿ ಬರೆದಿದ್ದೇನೆ. ಆದರೆ ಇವತ್ತಿಗೂ ನನಗೆ ಬಾಯಿ ತೊದಲದೆ ಮಾತನಾಡೋಕ್ಕೆ ಸಾಧ್ಯ ಇರೋದು ಕನ್ನಡ ಭಾಷೆ ಮಾತ್ರ. ನಮಸ್ಕಾರ.
ನೆಟ್ಫ್ಲಿಕ್ಸ್ ಬೇರೆ ಬೇರೆ ಕಡೆ ಮಾಡಿ. ಐ ಹಂಬ್ಲಿ ಐ ಥಿಂಕ್ ಐ ಡಿಸ್ಅಗ್ರಿ, ಬಟ್ ವಿಲ್
ನೋ
ಬಟ್ ಇದು ಬಿಟ್ಟು ಒಂದು ಕ್ವಶನ್ ನನಗೆ, ಅಮೆಚೂರ್ ವರ್ಸಸ್ ಪ್ರೊಫೆಷನಲ್ ಥಿಯೇಟರ್ ಬಗ್ಗೆ. ಸುಮಾರು 20-30 ವರ್ಷಕ್ಕಾಗಿ ಅಮೆಚೂರ್ ಥಿಯೇಟರ್ ಅಂತಂದರೆ ಅವ್ರು ಬೇರೆ ಬೇರೆ ಕಡೆ ಕೆಲಸ ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ. ಅವ್ರ ಪ್ಯಾಷನ್ಗೆ ಒಂದು ಕಡೆ ಬಂದುಬಿಟ್ಟು ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ. ಎಲ್ಲದರಿಂದ ಪ್ರಸಾದನದಿಂದ ಲೈಟಿಂಗ್ವರೆಗೆ ಎಲ್ಲರೂ ಅವ್ರು ಮಾಡಬೇಕು ಅಂತ ಮಾಡ್ತಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ಸೊ ಅದನ್ನು ನಮಗೆಲ್ಲ ಖರ್ಚುಗಳು ತುಂಬ ಕಡಿಮೆ ಇತ್ತು. ಒಂದು ಶೋ ಮಾಡಿದ್ರೆ 2 ಶೋ ಮಾಡಿದ್ರೆ ಚೆನ್ನಾಗಾಯ್ತಪ್ಪ ಅಂತ ಅಂದ್ಬಿಟ್ಟು ಒಂದು 6 ತಿಂಗಳಿಗಾದ್ರೂ ಮತ್ತೆ ಸಲ ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಿ. ಅದೇ ಥರ ಪ್ರೊಫೆಷನಲ್ ಥಿಯೇಟರ್ ಇತ್ತು, ಅವ್ರು ಇಡೀ ಲೈಫ್ನೇ ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಮುಟ್ಬಾರ್ದು. ಈಗ ನಾವು ಒಂದು 10-15 ವರ್ಷದಿಂದ ಏನು ಮಾಡ್ತಿದ್ವಿ ಅಂತಂದರೆ, ಬೇರೆ ಕಡೆ ಕೆಲಸ ಮಾಡ್ತಿಲ್ಲ, ಬಟ್ ಮೆಚೂರ್ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ಕೊಡ್ತಾರೆ. ಬಟ್ ಅವ್ರಿಗೆ ಐ ಥಿಂಕ್ ಅವ್ರಿಗೆ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪೆಕ್ಟೇಷನ್ ಆಫ್ಕೋರ್ಸ್ ಜೀವನ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಂಡು ಅದೆಲ್ಲ ಇರುತ್ತೆ. ಸೊ ಅದರಿಂದ ಎಲ್ಲೋ ಒಂದು ಕಡೆ ಸದ್ಯಕ್ಕೆ ಏನು ಕರಿಬೇಕು ಅಂತ.
No, I have understood your question. The question has to be slightly redefined. The question is between an actor who is amateur and then an actor who becomes more professional, proficiated. You see, but unfortunately today it has become monetized. Amateur theatre means people who don't receive money. Professional theatre means people who receive money. That is not the distinction. Theatre is great simply because, unlike dance, unlike music, here you allow people to enter without perfection. Even a child can enter into theatre and start performing. But after that, theatre says, don't stop there. And we know that even in amateur theatre, we have seen actors who became so professional. In the non-paying situation itself we have seen. We have seen it in Bengal, we have seen it in Karnataka, we have seen it in Marathi. Great actors who went on perfecting themselves. In fact, in the monetized stage, this is not happening. You know, my main problem is, today there are no versatile actors, either in cinema or in theatre. A good actor is a versatile actor. A good actor is somebody who can do the role of Hanuman one day, the next day the good actor can do the role of a woman. Like yesterday we were seeing in Sneha's house, this actor Kulkarni, Atul Kulkarni, in that Marathi film, you know, he's my student. I've seen him act in many roles on stage. But in that film, I was really amazed at the way he could perform the role of effeminate character. See, this is versatility. There are versatile actors even today, but very few, you know.
So obviously enough, I mean, just as we talk about deeply engaging with theatre, ನಾವು ರಂಗಭೂಮಿ ಅಂತ ಎಷ್ಟೇ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರು ಒಂದು ಪೀಳಿಗೆಗೆ ಅಲ್ಲಿಂದ ಅಲ್ಲ, ಎಲ್ಲ ಪೀಳಿಗೆಗಳಿಗೂ ಸಿನಿಮಾಗೆ ಇಲ್ಲಿಂದ ಹೋಗ್ಬಹುದು ಅಂತ ಗೊತ್ತಾಗುವವರೆಗೂ ರಂಗಭೂಮಿಲಿ ಸಾಕಷ್ಟು ಬದ್ಧತೆಯಿಂದ ಕೆಲಸ ಮಾಡಿದವರು ಇದ್ದಾರೆ. ಆದರೆ ಯಾವತ್ತೋ ಒಂದಿನ ನಾನು ಸಿನಿಮಾಗೆ ಹೋಗ್ಬೇಕು ಅಂತ ರಂಗಭೂಮಿಗೆ ಬಂದವರು ಇದ್ದಾರೆ. So obviously now a lot of actors come with the aspiration of making it big in cinema. Even directors aka teachers, would love to have them on their teams. They are the big medals, like a trophy partner. Where does that leave the theatre? With acting and beyond, I think you're essentially addressing actors in theatre. This is my understanding.
Look, none of us have any illusion about theatre. We all know that theatre as a movement is almost dead. As a movement, you compare it with, let us say, the 70s era in the 20th century, when Badal Sarkar was doing well, Habib Tanvir was in his peak, when Shanta Gandhi was in her peak, when your LIC employee, your bank employee used to be activists for theatre. It was a movement. Street theatre, for example, was part of a huge movement for socio-political change. That is dead. We know that. Whatever little theatre that exists, some very good productions are happening, I am not questioning that, but most of it is an appendage to entertainment industry. Where is it happening? It is happening in Bombay, it is happening in Delhi, it is happening in Calcutta, it is not happening in Gulbarga, it is not happening in Dodballapur. In fact, let me tell you, I have been travelling throughout the country. When I go to colleges and ask students, I just ask one simple question. How many of you have seen a play? Initially 200 hands rise out of 500 people, and then I say, no, reels alla swame, nijwada theatre andaga, all hands go down, and believe me, 2 or 3 hands remain left. Isn't it a terrible situation? In Gulbarga, if there are only 2 people who have seen any performance at all, I am not talking of Mohan Rakesh, I am not talking of anything, I am talking of Ram Leela, Krishna Leelas, or some bullshit theatre, they have not seen it. And all of them are seeing your Netflix. You see, it's a dangerous situation. Because culture is not Netflix. Culture is you are singing, you are performing, you are talking Kannada. You are not talking Kannada. You are listening to Kannada in the Netflix. You see, it's a very dangerous situation. So let us face that. That is what I am worried about. And that's why I am talking truth. The truth of the matter is, no government can prevent Kannada going down, Marathi going down. They can only make Marathis and Kannadigas fight, Tamils and Telugus fight. But can they really let the language, the mother tongue survive? No. Because the economic compulsions, the market compulsions are so strong that nobody wants that to happen. We all know. It is we who are pushing our children to learn English. It is we who are pushing our children to the mobile. Yes. हमारे बच्चे मोबाइल में घुस रहे हैं, क्या कर रहे हैं हम? Netflix is great. The roads are great. Every district in this country is having an airport. My God, what a fabulous thing. I can travel in 2 hours from here to Delhi. What a great thing. Yes, it is a great thing. But what about your Gulbarga? What about your Dodballapur? What about these hundreds and thousands of young people who are coming into expression? ಇದು ಕನ್ನಡಿಗರಿಗೆ ಗೊತ್ತಿಲ್ಲ. ಇಲ್ಲಿ ನಾನು ಕನ್ನಡಿಗರಿಗೆ ಒಂದು ಮಾತು ಹೇಳ್ತೀನಿ. ಇವತ್ತು ಯುವಕರು ಈ ಮಾಧ್ಯಮಕ್ಕೆ ಬರುತ್ತಿರುವಷ್ಟು ದೊಡ್ಡ ಸಂಖ್ಯೆಯಲ್ಲಿ ಯಾವತ್ತೂ ಬಂದಿರಲಿಲ್ಲ. ಸ್ವಾತಂತ್ರ್ಯ ಚಳುವಳಿಯ ಸಂದರ್ಭದಲ್ಲಿ ಯುವಕರು ಹೇಗೆ ಹೋಗಿ ಅರೆಸ್ಟ್ ಆಗ್ತಿದ್ರು, ಅಥವಾ ನಕ್ಸಲೈಟ್ ಚಳುವಳಿಯ ಸಂದರ್ಭದಲ್ಲಿ ಹೇಗೆ ಆಗ್ತಿದ್ರು, ಅಷ್ಟು ದೊಡ್ಡ ಪ್ರಮಾಣದಲ್ಲಿ ಯುವಕರು ಯುವತಿಯರು ಮನೆ ಬಿಟ್ಟು, ಮಠ ಬಿಟ್ಟು, ಅವ್ರಿಗೆ ದೊಡ್ಡ ದೊಡ್ಡ ಕೆಲಸ ಬಿಟ್ಟು ಇವತ್ತು ಆ್ಯಕ್ಟಿಂಗಿಗೆ ಬರ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ, ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪ್ರೆಷನ್ನಿಗೆ, ಸಂವಹನದ ಕಡೆ ಬರ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ. ಅವ್ರು ಬಂದರೆ ಅವರಿಗೆ ಮಾಡಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಯಾವ ನಾಟಕವೂ ಇಲ್ಲ. ಅವ್ರು ಮಾಡ್ತಿದ್ರೋ ಬಿಡ್ತಿದ್ರೋ ಅನ್ನೋದು ನಂತರದ ಪ್ರಶ್ನೆ. ಅವ್ರು ಎಲ್ಲರೂ ಮುಂಬೈನ ಆ ಸ್ಲಮ್ಮಿಗೆ, ನಾನು ಅದನ್ನು ಆ್ಯಕ್ಟರ್ಗಳ ಸ್ಲಮ್ ಅಂತ ಕರಿತೀನಿ, ಅಲ್ಲಿಗೆ ಹೋಗೋದು ಅನಿವಾರ್ಯ ಮಾಡಿಟ್ಟಿದ್ದೀವಿ. ಇವತ್ತು ಯಾರಾದರೂ ಆ್ಯಕ್ಟರಲ್ಲಿ ಮೈಸೂರಲ್ಲಿ ಉಳಿದಿದ್ದರೆ ಅವರ ಮೊಬೈಲ್ ಯಾವಾಗ ರಿಂಗ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ ಅಂತ ಕಾಯ್ತಿರ್ತಾರೆ. ಆ ಮೊಬೈಲ್ ರಿಂಗ್ ಆದ ತಕ್ಷಣ ಯಾರೋ ಒಬ್ಬ ಇವನು ಸೀರಿಯಲ್ನವನು ಹೇಳಿದರೆ ಇಲ್ಲಿಂದ ಅಲ್ಲಿಗೆ ಹೋಗೋ ಬಸ್ ಚಾರ್ಜಿನ ಮೇಲೆ ಒಂದು 500 ರೂಪಾಯಿ ಸಿಕ್ಕರೆ ಸಾಕು ಓಡೋಗಿ ಸೀರಿಯಲಲ್ಲಿ ಆ್ಯಕ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡಿ ಬರ್ತಾರೆ. ಇದು ಪಾಪ ದುರಂತ ಅವ್ರದ್ದು. ನಾನು ಅವ್ರನ್ನ ಬೈತಾ ಇಲ್ಲ, ಇದು ನಮ್ಮನ್ನು ನಾವು ಬೈಕೋಬೇಕಾಗಿದೆ. ಇಟ್ಸ್ ಎ ವೆರಿ ವೆರಿ ಬ್ಯಾಡ್ ಸಿಚುವೇಶನ್. ಆ ಸಿಚುವೇಶನ್ನಲ್ಲಿ ನಾನು ಈ ಪುಸ್ತಕ ಬರೆದಿದ್ದೀನಿ. ಆ ಸಿಚುವೇಶನ್ನಲ್ಲಿ ಮತ್ತೆ ಸತ್ಯದರ್ಶನ ಸಾಧ್ಯ ಮಾರಾಯ ಅಂತ ಯುವಕರಿಗೆ ಹೇಳೋದಕ್ಕೆ ಸಿದ್ಧಪಡ್ತಾಯಿದ್ದೀನಿ. ಒಂದು ಬಹಳ ಒಳ್ಳೆಯ ಸಂಗತಿ ಅಂತಂದರೆ, ಇವತ್ತು ನಾನೇನಾದರೂ ಹೇಳಿದರೆ ಒಂದು 2 ಲಕ್ಷ ಜನ ಯುವಕ ಯುವತಿಯರು ಆ ಮಾತು ಕೇಳ್ತಾರೆ. ಯಾಕೆ ಅಂತಂದರೆ ಸಿಂಪಲ್, ಇನ್ನೇನೂ ಅಲ್ಲ ಸರ್, ನೀವು ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಸರಳವಾಗಿ ಮಾತಾಡ್ತೀರಿ ಸರ್ ಅಂತ. ಸಿ, ಆ್ಯಕ್ಟಿಂಗ್ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ದೇ ವಾಂಟ್ ಟು ಅಂಡರ್ಸ್ಟ್ಯಾಂಡ್ ಇನ್ ಸಿಂಪಲ್ ವರ್ಡ್ಸ್.
ಸೊ ಇನ್ನೊಂದು ಕನ್ನಡದ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಸುಮಾರು ಒಂದು 30-40 ವರ್ಷಕ್ಕಾಗಿ ಕನ್ನಡಕ್ಕೆ ಸುಮಾರು ಸ್ಕ್ರಿಪ್ಟ್ಸು ಬೇರೆ ಕಡೆಯಿಂದ ಬರುತ್ತೆ. ಯುರೋಪ್ ಆಗಲಿ, ಇಂಗ್ಲೀಷಿಂದ ಡೆಫಿನೆಟ್ ಆಗಲಿ, ಬೇರೆ ಲ್ಯಾಂಗ್ವೇಜಿಂದ ಬರುತ್ತೆ. ಈಗ ಬೇರೆ ಲ್ಯಾಂಗ್ವೇಜಿಂದ ಬರೋದು ತುಂಬ ಕಡಿಮೆ ಆಗಿದೆ. ಅಂದರೆ ಹೊಸದಾಗಲಿ ಸ್ಕ್ರಿಪ್ಟ್ಸ್ ಅಂತ ಏನಿಲ್ಲ, ಇಲ್ಲ ಅಂತಲ್ಲ, ಎಲ್ಲ ಕಡೆ ಬೇಕಾದಷ್ಟಿದೆ. ಇಂಗ್ಲೀಷ್ ಥಿಯೇಟ್ರಿಗೂ ಸಿಕ್ಕಾಪಟ್ಟೆ ಚೆನ್ನಾಗಿ ನಡೀತಿದೆ ಈಗ. ಆದರೆ ಅಲ್ಲಿಂದ ಕನ್ನಡಕ್ಕೆ ಬಂದು ಅನುವಾದಿತವಾಗಿ ಆಗೋದು ತುಂಬ ಕಡಿಮೆ ಆಗ್ತಿದೆ. ನಮ್ಮ ಬೇರೆ ಇಂಡಿಯನ್ ಲ್ಯಾಂಗ್ವೇಜಸ್ ಬಿಡಿ, ಅದಂತೂ ಆಲ್ಮೋಸ್ಟ್ ಇಲ್ಲ. ಇದಕ್ಕೆ ನಿಮ್ಮ
the perception of playwriting has changed. You see, we did not have Shakespeare, we didn't have Chekhov in our contemporary this thing. Let's face it, our great writing in Kannada, in Bengali, in Marathi was all in poetry or in even in fiction, in novels, short stories, but not really in drama. Drama is very, very young. And those people who wrote drama were all people who were college lecturers or some professors who sat in their rooms, wrote the entire play and then took it to you and say, produce it. They were not like Shakespeare because Shakespeare was an actor. They were not like Molière because Molière was an actor. They were not like Kalidasa because Kalidasa was part of that whole movement. So that transition is happening. So a lot of theatre people are producing their own scripts, they are improvising their scripts. For example, my play, I don't even ask for royalty because they will not give it. And I don't care because they are doing it and they are changing it, they are trying to work out their own script. So there is a great transitional thing happening.
My question is more from when we are in a globalized world, right? I don't think we are even reading what is there outside the world and trying to acclimatize for our own thing, right? To find that I will do everything myself or limit ourselves to that is not probably right, is my question.
Sir, that is the whole problem. Nobody is reading. Let's face it, who reads? They actually watch a mobile, they watch pictures, reels. So when the reading habit itself, of course there are people reading. I am not, please don't understand myself as a idiot generalizer. But I am trying to say that on a global scale, reading has come down. If you ask a young man, have you read Shakespeare, have you read Chekhov, have you read Kalidasa, they will say no, we don't have the time. It's a reality.
But at least writers and translators should read. Right? We are not asking for the general public.
I'm just adding to the question in the context of the book, is that there are no references to the literature that the actors can refer. Through this book, is there a glossary or something you would like to leave behind for the actors to consult? Because I'm thinking if we are saying we are losing direction, then is there a direction that they can take?
No.
Beyond the book?
No, I don't agree. For example, it refers to every one of those masters who created Indian method. It refers to Habib Saab, it refers to Alkazi, it refers to Tagore, it refers to all of them. But then it doesn't refer to what we thought were playwrights. Because young people are not reading it. If I push Lankesh onto them, they have not read, what can I do? If I push some Surendra Verma in Hindi, लोगों ने पढ़ा नहीं है, मैं क्या करूं? सुरेंद्र वर्मा को मैं रेफर करूं तो वो रेफर नहीं करेंगे, ऐसा हो गया है, मैं क्या करूं? तो मैं क्या करता हूं, आई टेल देम दैट लुक यार, शेक्सपियर वॉज एन एक्टर, लुक यार, मोलियर वॉज एन एक्टर, look here, your Kailasam was an actor, your Samsa was an actor. So that at least as actors, they will get inspired to read those things. But I can't inspire them to read a college professor who has written 25 plays. No. And in those 25 plays, some of them were good. Not all of them were bad. But then this is the situation.
Should I ask the last question? One last question, sir, very generic, not in the context. In all these decades of engaging with Kendra, what are the prominent shifts you have noticed in theatre, through actors, directors, and also the audiences, which is something that we essentially forget to address? Have the audiences shifted? Let us start from the 70s when you staged your most successful productions, to now you still continue to stage most successful and contemporary productions. What are your observations along the way?
Look, first of all, I look as if I am a terrible nihilist. Because that is the situation. But then, unlike most others, I also realize that the young people today are much better equipped to face the world than the oldies like me. I am not saying it because to please the young people. 6 months of living in Bombay in that ghetto, I realized that those young people who are loitering there are very, very serious. You talk to them, you see, you have to, ನಾವು ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ನಮ್ಮ ಭಾಷೆ ಬದಲು ಮಾಡಬೇಕಾಗಿದೆ. ಬೋಳ್ತಲೆ ಗಾಂಧೀಜಿನ ಮುಂದಿಟ್ಕೊಂಡು ಹೋದರೆ ಅವರು ಕೇಳಲ್ಲ, ಅಥವಾ ಈ ಕಾವಿ ಬಟ್ಟೆ ಉಟ್ಕೊಂಡು ಹೋಗಿರೋ ಬಸವಣ್ಣನ್ನೇ ಮುಂದಿಟ್ಕೊಂಡು ಹೋದರೆ ಅವ್ರು ಕೇಳಲ್ಲ. ಬಟ್ ಅದನ್ನೇ ಅವ್ರ ಭಾಷೆನಲ್ಲಿ ಹೇಳಿ ಕೇಳ್ತಾರೆ. ಇದು ಅದರಲ್ಲಿ ಬರೆದಿದ್ದೀನಿ ನಾನು. ವಿವೇಕಾನಂದ ಮತ್ತು ಭಗತ್ ಸಿಂಗ್ ಇವರು ಕೂಡ ಯುವಕರೇನೆ. ಅವ್ರು ಯುವಕರಾಗೆ ಸತ್ತೋದ್ರು ಇಬ್ಬರೂ. ಆ ಇಬ್ಬರು ಅಕಸ್ಮಾತ್ ಮುಂಬೈ ಘೆಟ್ಟೋದಲ್ಲಿ ಇದ್ದಿದ್ರೆ ಅವ್ರು ವಿವೇಕಾನಂದ ಆಗ್ತಿದ್ರ, ಇವ್ರು ಆಗ್ತಿದ್ರ, ಭಗತ್ ಸಿಂಗ್ ಆಗ್ತಿದ್ರ ಅನ್ನೋ ಪ್ರಶ್ನೆ ನಾವು ತುಂಬ ಸೀರಿಯಸ್ಸಾಗಿ ಕೇಳ್ಕೊಬೇಕಾಗಿ. ಈ ಘೆಟ್ಟೋ ಸೃಷ್ಟಿ ಮಾಡಿದವರು ನಾವು. You see, we can't blame the young for everything. The young are quitting the middle class houses. They are sick of the middle class situation. Why should they be attracted to middle class situation? Both the parents are saying they have already made enough property for themselves, and then they are saying quickly get into a job which gives you 3 lakhs of rupees per month. He doesn't want 3 lakhs of rupees, yeah? Or she doesn't want 3 lakhs of rupees. She wants to take a challenge. For heaven's sake, Bhagat Singh took a challenge. Vivekananda took a challenge. Vivekananda was not even God-loving person when he began. He was questioning every bloody thing on this earth. Bhagat Singh, by the age of 19, he had challenged everything that had to be challenged. And they became great leaders. So I believe that the young today can become that if we give them the correct direction in their language. So I know my theatre, I can talk to them in a simple way, in the way they understand it. I don't know other things. I am not a politician, I am not a social worker. I have done some social work, but that is only to acquire knowledge for myself. So I have both the things. I am very, very positive about the world and equally negative about the situation that we have been constructing.
Thank you for all these insights.
Thank you, both of you.
Thank you for having us over. And so it was a conversation that felt like an examination and also a very joyous assignment at the same time. Because I never studied like this big a book in that short a time and made notes also. So
I just want to share that, like she said, she is from Hindu. These are from old tickets of drama. They did not get sold. Right? So I didn't get this one. Right? So that is the situation. Anyway, thank you so much.
Thank you. There is a lot that you need to learn from both of them. Dongre has been, working with small theatre. He's a big man in software, but he is working so assiduously. He has a small theatre he has built in his own house. His father-in-law built that, and he is maintaining that. Wonderful work that he is doing. He is doing wonderful work in science, in popularizing science and all that. And of course, she is actually an actress and from family of social activists. I thank both of you for doing that.
ಥ್ಯಾಂಕ್ ಯು ಸೊ ಮಚ್. ಈಗ ಪುಸ್ತಕಗಳು ಮಾರಾಟಕ್ಕೆ ಲಭ್ಯ ಇದೆ. ಯಾರಾದರೂ ಪುಸ್ತಕ ತಗೋಬೇಕು ಅನ್ನೋ ಪುಸ್ತಕಗಳನ್ನ ಕೊಡ್ಬೋದು. ಥ್ಯಾಂಕ್ ಯು.